Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, where Jeremiah and myself, Ben, will recap everything there is in the world of baseball within the past week since we last met. Jeremiah, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing quite well.
Yeah.
I've been quite addicted to this app that came out yesterday called Pokemon Go.
Hey, yeah. Hey, I heard about that. Yeah, I was on Twitter. And I was like, "What is this?" I haven't had a chance to.
Do you know what it is, or do you want me to fill you in?
Can you fill me in a little bit?
Yeah, so basically what it is, it's kind of like a geo-catching Pokemon-related app. So you have to actually walk around with this thing and like move places depending on real-world locations, like big places and the small places in your area. Like if there's like a church nearby or something that's like a Pokemon center where you can find like Pokeballs. And then depending on where you are in the world, like if you're near water, there's going to be water Pokemon you can try and catch. If you're in the grass, there's going to be like grass Pokemon, snakes, desert sand Pokemon. You can like catch them, and then you can go to like gyms that are in the area, like specific places, like a church or like a high school or something. That might be a gym. And then you can like battle people that are there and like stuff like that. So
so it's like Pokemon in real life, finally.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And it's like a really good thing because
that sounds awesome, actually.
Like I've only downloaded it yesterday. It came out yesterday, and me and my girlfriend were playing it. And you have to like walk around to like catch Pokemon. It tells you like how far away they are, so you like walk to them, and then you have to like catch them with your Pokeballs and everything. And like we've walked. The app, it tells you like 3.3 kilometers, which is about like over 2 miles. So you're getting like some sort of exercise in it as well. So it's kind of a good thing in a way. And it's really fun. It's really addicting. It's still starting out, so it's got a lot of bugs on it. Like they need to do some updates. The servers crash a lot of time. People are downloading it. But like they'll like fix that stuff as things go. So it's pretty cool. It's called Pokemon Go. It's on the App Store. It's on the Google Play as well. So if you have Android or Apple phone, iPhone, you can download it. So
yeah,
cool.
I heard about last night. I was on Twitter when I was at my other job, and then I saw a couple of people tweeting about Pokemon Go, and I'm like, why are people tweeting about Pokemon like pictures? And then I was like, oh,
yeah, it's really cool. It's really fun.
Okay, it sounds really cool because it's Pokemon in real life, kind of. It's the closest we'll probably get to Pokemon in real life. So
yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah,
really
I can't wait to try it out.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be playing it as we exit the shows today.
I just need time to actually do it. It sounds really time consuming.
It does because you have to really walk around and stuff. So we did it for a couple hours. So, but anyway, so enough about the Pokemon. We're going to talk about it here as we always do at the GSMC Baseball Podcast about baseball. We have a busy show for you today. This show is going to be basically based around all things All-Star. So we had our All-Star game rosters announced last week. We have some snubs. We have the people that on the AL and NL that are included in the final vote, because they do have a final vote where one more person gets into the All-Star game that might have been snubbed.
Yeah, I believe the final vote is revealed tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have we're going to have our prediction for the All-Star game, who we think might win, who we think might be starting pitching. And then we also have the Home Run Derby, which is going to be on Monday. We have our participants here. We have our predictions for that as well. So that's what we're going to cover in today's show.
Can't wait. Sounds really
All right, Jeremiah.
fun.
So we're going to lead off here with our All-Star Game rosters. We did our predictions last week on the show, and now we have our rosters announced. So do you want to do one league and I'll do the other?
I would do the National League.
Okay, so you want to start off there with the NL?
Yes,
and then I'll go to the American League after you're finished.
Okay, in the National League, the starters are catcher Buster Posey for San Francisco Giants, and from first base to shortstop, the Chicago Cubs' entire infield is starting. First baseman Anthony Rizzo, second baseman Ben Zobrist, Chris Bryant at third base, and Addison Russell at shortstop.
Kind of a surprise there.
Yeah, some people say maybe Russell shouldn't start in the All-Star game, and you can't really. I kind of agree because there's so many shortstops that in the National League that probably should be starting, like Corey Seager. You can even make an argument for Trevor Story, but
I would say Brandon Crawford as well.
Brandon Crawford, he's actually. I thought he got kind of snubbed a little bit, but we'll get more on that later. So yeah, he's probably the surprise there. A lot of people were appalled by him being started in the game. But moving on to the outfield now, Yoenis Cespedes for the Mets. He's probably been a flat out stud. Dexter Fowler, another Cubs player. He's hurt right now. I don't know if he's actually going to be ready. And he's on the disabled list. I'm not sure if he's going to be ready for.
I don't think so. So they'll probably have to name a replacement.
They probably will, and I probably would get. I think I'll probably get into that once I get to the reserves. And Bryce Harper, who's probably most likely, we all knew he was going to be in there, so I don't have to go in further in depth in that. As for the reserves, Jonathan Lucroy from the Milwaukee Brewers and Wilson Ramos for the Washington Nationals are the backup catchers. Both are having phenomenal years, finally. And Ramos has finally stayed healthy. Lucroy has been playing just as good as Buster Posey to this point in the season. And then at first base, Paul Goldschmidt from the Arizona Diamondbacks. You know, he's always in the All-Star game.
Goldie's such a good hitter.
He is. He's
golden at the plate.
He's Goldie. Is gold. Okay. And then another name here I haven't seen the All-Star game is Will Myers. He's having a career year with San Diego Padres. So he's going to play he got at his home stadium in Petco Park.
He's really been a bright spot for that franchise that's not had such a good year so far.
Myers has finally performed as the player as we all thought he would be, before he came into the league with the Tampa Bay Rays a couple years ago. And second base, Daniel Murphy of the Nationals. Some people thought maybe he should have been the starter over Zobrist, and I kind of agree because, when he's among the league hitters in average in the deep lineup, you can't really argue against that. And then Nolan Arenado from the Rockies, backup at third base. Many people thought maybe he should have been the starter, but, you can't really go wrong with Chris Bryant. Chris Bryant is having a good year, and he is a star in a way. And Matt Carpenter, actually, from the St. Louis Cardinals. He's actually just got put on the disabled list.
Yeah, so he won't be in the game. But.
So I think Osmati Diaz, the shortstop for the Cardinals, is actually replacing him. So, yeah, Diaz is actually having a good year, actually. A guy who didn't even make the team out of spring training, and he's been really solid, with the injuries to Johnny Peralta and I think Ruben Tejada before he was released by the Cardinals earlier this year. And we're going back to the shortstops here, backup shortstops. Corey Seager for the Dodgers. So, maybe people thought he should have been the starter, probably having the best year of all the shortstops in the National League.
It's a big accomplishment for a rookie to make the All-Star team like that.
He doesn't play like a rookie, I'll tell you that. I think most people...
It's very true.
Most people probably don't know he is a rookie. But, yeah, he's been lining it up for that Dodgers lineup. And we got a breakout player for the Cincinnati Reds, Adam Duvall. Having a great year with 22 home runs, 59 RBIs. Yeah, he's just been a breakout player for the Cincinnati Reds. He coming in from the Mike Leake trade from last year from the San Francisco Giants. The Reds probably got a steal in this guy because he's just been hitting it out of the ballpark. And we got Carlos Gonzalez from the Colorado Rockies, backup outfielder, playing really good this year. He had a little bit of a slow start, but he's been hitting it out of the park as well. And Adubo Herrera from the Philadelphia Phillies, he's been really good on top of that Phillies lineup. That doesn't have a lot of talent outside of Herrera and Maikel Franco. Yeah, and he's on pace for a 2020 season, so I'm really glad he's in there. And then Marcell Ozuna for the Miami Marlins. He's been a stud for the Miami Marlins this year. He's having a great breakout season.
Leading their team in just about every offensive category. Well, I'd say except for home runs now, since Giancarlo Stanton has hit 4 home runs in his last 4 at-bats. So, pretty impressive. But
it's pretty impressive after the year Ozuna had last year. He was just flat-out horrible, but I'm really glad Ozuna's doing good again. And moving on to the pitchers. We got guys like Jake Arrieta from the Cubs, Madison Bumgarner from the Giants, Johnny Cueto, also from the Giants, who just won yesterday, improved to 13-1. Then we move to Jerry's Familia. I don't know why I can't say his name, from the New York Mets. Jose Fernandez, Kenley Jansen, Clayton Kershaw, John Lester, Mark Milicion from the Pirates, who's actually the only Pirates player on the All-Star roster, which is kind of shocking in a way. But I'll get into that more in the snubs later. Fernando Rodney, who started the year as a San Diego Padres closer, has been lining it up and he got traded to the Marlins. So he's now, the 8th inning man behind AJ Ramos for Miami over there. Steven Strasburg, having a great year for the Nationals. Noah Syndergaard, another great player, for having another great year for a good team in the New York Mets. And Julio Teheran from the Atlanta Braves. I think he's the only Braves player on the roster, I believe.
Yeah, every team has to be represented, so they do need an all-star of every team. He is the only Braves player on the National League roster.
Yeah, and then I can get to the final vote candidates if you want.
We're going to do them in the next segment. So,
the thing that stood out to me from looking at these rosters, I don't see Andrew McCutchen on here, which is kind of shocking to me. I don't see Adrian Gonzalez from the Dodgers. I do not see Gregory Polanco or Starling Marte from the Pirates, who are having good years. Yeah, it's just kind of shocking in a way.
And you mentioned Gonzalez and McCutchen, and they aren't in the final vote as well,
they're
so
not,
they will not be
I will
included.
get more into them in the snubs, and I don't see guys like. Speaking of I'm looking at Adam Duvall here. I don't see Jay Bruce in there. Joey Votto, he's not in there. Freddie Freeman is not on there from the Atlanta Braves. So yeah, there's so many players that got left out, but we'll get into that in the next segment. So
those were the NL All-Stars by Jeremiah. I'm now going to move on to the American League. So starting at catcher, we have Salvador Perez of the Kansas City Royals, as well as first baseman Eric Hosmer of the Royals. Moving into second base, Jose Altuve. There's really no doubt about that there. Probably having the best season of any player maybe in Major League Baseball from an offensive standpoint. Moving on to third base is Manny Machado of the Orioles. And Xander Bogaerts is starting at shortstop from the Boston Red Sox. So we have our first Red Sox of the list, but then they're going to clean out the outfield with the exception of Mike Trout, who is from the Angels. So for the outfield rest, we have Boston Red Sox players. We have Jackie Bradley Jr. and Mookie Betts. And then at DH, real no surprise here as well, Big Papi David Ortiz is going to be DHing for the American League at the age of 40. So had a great season, a great sending out season for Big Papi there. So now on to our reserves. We have Matt Wieters, Baltimore Orioles catcher, as well as Stephen Vogt of the A's backing up behind the plate there. First baseman, Miguel Cabrera. No real surprise there. Former offensive Triple Crown winner. One of the best, most feared hitters in all of baseball. Second base, backup Robinson Cano of the Mariners. Third base, Josh Donaldson of the Blue Jays. Another great player, had a couple good seasons as of lately with the Blue Jays, and a former A's player as well, Josh Donaldson. At shortstop, we have two. We have Francisco Lindor of the Cleveland Indians. Indians having a great last few weeks ever since the Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA championship there. And as well, we have Eduardo Nunez of the Twins. So in the outfield, we have Carlos Beltran of the Yankees. We have Ian Desmond of the Rangers. And we have Mark Trumbo, the American League home run leader, Mark Trumbo of the Orioles. And then we have backup DH, we have Edwin Encarnacion from the Blue Jays. So now we're going to move on to our pitching staff here. We have Marco Estrada of the Blue Jays, starting pitcher. We also have Cole Hamels of the Rangers. Danny Salazar having a great season for the Indians, really one of the leaders of that pitching staff, along with Corey Kluber. And then we also have Chris Sale of the White Sox, maybe the favorite for the American League Cy Young as it stands right now. Stephen Wright of the Red Sox having a good season. Then we have we're moving on. They have a lot more reserve pitchers, the AL, as opposed to the NL. A lot more starters. The NL starting pitching is a lot more dominant than the American League. So the AL decides to go with a lot more reserves. Maybe get an inning out of a lot of these guys. So we have Dylan Betances from the Yankees. Betances, yes. Yeah. We have Brad Batch from the Orioles, as well as Zach Britton from the Orioles. We have Alex Colomé from the Rays.
Yeah, he's been a stud this year for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Wade Davis, the Kansas City Royals closer, did make the team, but he is on the DL, so he's not going to be playing the game, unfortunately. We also have Will Harris from the Astros. Kelvin Herrera from the Royals, a great reliever. Craig Kimbrell from the Red Sox. And we have Andrew Miller of the Yankees. So that cleans out the American League roster. Definitely a stacked roster. More of an offensive roster. I think their pitching is not nearly as strong as the National League, so I think they're going to need to get more offense.
They need a lot of work from the relievers on the roster, and they have some really good relievers on here. So
I think they're going to need a lot of work from their relievers, as Jeremiah mentioned, and as well as their offensive leaders, guys like Altuve, Cabrera. The list goes on and on. If they're going to really have a chance to win the All-Star game this year again, so we're going to take our first commercial break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We're going to be returning with our snubs from both leagues, as well as the final vote candidates, which, as Jeremiah mentioned, will be announced tomorrow. The voting opened on Tuesday, so a few days there for people to decide. We're going to mention those names and who you think is going to come out of the All-Star final vote. We'll be right back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, and now for our All-Star Game snubs, the players that did not make the cut on Tuesday. We're not including final vote candidates because they still have a chance to make the roster tomorrow. So we're going to get into, I'm going to get into the National League. Ben's going to get into the American League. So yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, buddy.
Go ahead? Okay. When I was looking at the rosters for the National League, there's a couple players I really thought that should have made it. Like, first name that came to my mind was Gregory Polanco, outfielder of the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's having a great season, probably his best season so far in his young career. And his stats as of July 6th, 292 average, 12 home runs, 50 RBIs. And he has a WAR of 2.2. So, he's been
296. He's almost hitting 300. So
yeah, and he's been a beast for that Pittsburgh Pirates lineup. And
do you think the fact that the Pittsburgh Pirates aren't really? I mean, they're pushing for a wild card spot, but they're not really, shown a lot like the Cubs are. Really hurts.
Yeah, I think it kind of does a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so go on. I agree with you. So
yeah, okay, and then Christian Yelich from the Miami Marlins, I thought he was kind of a snub. I thought he was deserving for a spot here. He's been playing, even though he doesn't have as much home runs as his teammate Marcell Ozuna or Giancarlo Stanton, he's still hitting above 300. He has a 313 average. He's hitting 6 home runs. He has 42 RBIs. So that's pretty good at this point in the season. And his WAR is 2.3. So I know he will make one of these in the future, but I thought this was year, and this was going to be his first time in the roster. But I don't know. I think he'll be there in the future anyway. And so will Polanco. Polanco will probably be in the future also. And a big name that came to mind that I didn't see in the pitchers list is Max Scherzer.
I was going to mention Max Scherzer.
I was kind of surprised that he didn't make it. You know, he has a name playing probably for one of the best rotations in the league. And I think the thing that really got him is that he leads the league in home runs allowed at 21. Well, not the lead, the National League in
giving up.
Yeah. And then, but he does lead the majors in strikeouts with 155.
And he did have that 120 strikeout game.
He did.
So he has that.
Yeah,
he has that stamp game.
I'm just surprised that he didn't make the cut, honestly. But not everyone can make the All-Star game. And for my last snub, it's Drew Pomeranz, starting pitcher for the Padres. He's the 27-year-old's finally putting together a season and he's finally playing the way some people thought he would play. You know, because he used to be a top prospect for the Colorado Rockies. Then he had a okay career with the Oakland Athletics, but 7-7, 2.65 ERA, 109 strikeouts, and 95 innings pitched. I think the move to Petco Park really helped him this year, and I think he's possibly could be the Padres' ace next season if he continues what he has done in the second half. So, yeah.
Okay, so I will move on to some of my American League snubs, in my opinion. I was going to put Corey Kluber on the list, but he is going into the All-Star game now to replace the injuries for Wade Davis. So I wasn't going to put him on there, but I will bypass over him. So my first one I feel like is a snub is Adam Eaton of the White Sox.
Yeah,
so
he's been really good.
He's currently hitting .274, which is not great, but he does have a WAR of 3.5, and his on-plate percentage is .751. So I felt like he should have really gone in there. He's really having a great season and really leading that White Sox team to, parts unknown, obviously now behind the Indians who are having such a great season. But I felt like he was a guy I would have put on that list and maybe put at least having a chance there. The outfield in the American League is so tough. There's so many good players out there. So unfortunately for Adam Eaton, he's not going to be an All-Star. Another guy I have on the list is Adrian Beltre of the Rangers.
Yeah, playing for probably arguably the best team in the American League too.
Yeah, so he's hitting .285. He has 12 home runs. He has 53 RBIs. He has a win above replacement, which is WAR of 3.1. Really been one of the leaders in that offense of a team you mentioned, Jeremiah, that is one of the tops in the bigs and playing really well, especially in the American League. I felt like he should have been more represented as a leader of that team, a veteran, a 19-year veteran, sort of kind of like a David Ortiz, kind of like a sending off. He's going down, like finishing on his career, having a great season at an old age. I felt like he should have been represented in the All-Star game, but again, really competitive in that infield, so he will not be there, Adrian Beltre. So then my other guy is Carlos Correa. He's not really having such a great statistical year. He's only hitting .262, but he does have 13 home runs. He has 51 RBIs. He has an on-play percentage of .823. And the reason I would put Correa in this list is because of how he's helped turn around the Astros as of late, a team that started off really, really terribly and are now pushing forward, and maybe as well as the Indians, one of the hottest teams in baseball, and pushing for that playoff spot. I don't think they'll catch the Rangers in the AL West, but I definitely see them maybe pushing towards a playoff spot. And Correa, also as well as Jose Altuve, have really been some of the leaders of that Astros team, their revival there. So I thought that Correa probably should have had a chance at getting in the All-Star game.
Yeah,
it
but
is tough.
He will be there soon. He will be there soon.
Yeah, he's such a young guy, only his second year in the league. So, I mean,
I think he's like 21 now. He barely just turned 21.
Yeah, I kind of compare him to, in a way, like Manny Machado. Such good young players at the infield there.
I kind of compare him to maybe Alex Rodriguez a little bit. Because remember,
that's a big expectation.
Yeah, because Alex Rodriguez did start off as a shortstop. So I kind of compare him a little bit as of right now. He may not live up to that kind of a play, but yeah, he's a guy that I thought of when Correa came up last year.
Yeah, so I would have included Carlos Correa there. But now we're going to move on to some of the final vote getters. So, Jeremiah, here in the National League, what do you have?
Yeah, in the final vote, Brandon Belt, first baseman for the San Francisco Giants. It's going up. Starling Marte, another outfielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates, who I thought he should have been on the team as well. I didn't include him on the snubs because he still has a chance. Brian Braun, outfielder for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's having a good season. Trevor Story, rookie shortstop for the Colorado Rockies. And Jake Lamb, third baseman for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's actually having a really solid season. Really solid season for Lamb over there in Arizona.
Okay, so who do you expect to come out on top?
Well, from what I've read, Brandon Belt is actually leading the final vote getters. San Francisco Giants fans, they're very proactive getting their team's players in the game. Because I remember a couple years ago, I think they the whole infield made it. Because I'm not sure what year it was, 2011 or 2012. But I remember the year when Posey and Pablo Sandoval was in the starting lineup. Pablo Sandoval didn't have a good year that year, but he did become the MVP of the game, which is kind of ironic. But yeah, but the player that I want to see get in is Starling Marte. He's been just a beast this year for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see that too. You don't see the Pirates really represented as well as some of the other teams, so you would like to see that more there in the National League.
Nothing against Brandon Belt, though. He's having a really solid year for the San Francisco Giants. I just feel like Marte is more deserving this year. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So in the American League, for the final vote getters, we have second baseman Ian Kinsler of the Tigers. We have third baseman Evan Longoria of the Tampa Bay Rays. Another second baseman, Dustin Pedroia of the Red Sox. Then we have two outfielders on the list. We have Michael Saunders of the Blue Jays, and we have George Springer of the Astros. So currently the vote, this was as of yesterday, so Saunders was leading, Michael Saunders of Toronto, behind Springer, Pedroia, Kinsler, and Longoria. So the two outfielders definitely leading that thing. Looks like they're probably going to be, one of those two are probably going to be the final vote getter, which will be announced tomorrow. I mean, all these guys are really, really deserving. I would probably go with one of the infielders, maybe Kinsler or Pedroia. It's tough, though, with that second base being so competitive.
I don't know. I would go with Springer on this. Yeah, I would go with George Springer, yeah.
Okay, I mean, the second base position is really competitive. You have Altuve and you have Cano.
Michael Saunders is having a good year, too.
Yeah, and he is, and that's represented. He is leading the vote there. I'm actually surprised that Pedroia is not leading that vote because you mentioned a lot like the Giants fans being really passionate about their team and voting. You would say that with the Red Sox as well.
And it showed up in the
roster. In the roster, it showed up. They have a lot of players in that in the outfield and a few one in the infield.
It's like I described the All-Star game as the Theo Espin ball because these are players from the Red Sox and Cubs. These are players that were drafted or acquired during Theo Espin's time in both teams. So, of course, he's the GM. He's in the front office now for the Chicago Cubs and was in the front office for the Red Sox a while back. So I kind of call it that because, to me, it's like the Cubs versus Red Sox a little bit.
In a way, you could say that they are the two most represented teams. Yeah. But yeah, I'm surprised that Pedroia is not higher on that list because of that reason. Because you have the fans voting, and Pedroia has been a good player for such a long time, former MVP in the American League. So I am surprised that he's not there. But we do still have some time, so we will have to wait and see what happens. But there's your All-Star snubs and your All-Star final vote getters that we think are going to happen in the American League and National League. So
so we're going to get into our home run derby predictions after the break, right?
Yeah, so after our break, we're going to be doing All-Star game predictions. We have home run derby predictions. The home run derby is a little different of a format now, as with the last couple of years kind of changing. They have the clock now, so we're going to talk about that, what we have for some predictions, as well as some predictions for the All-Star game, what we think could determine the game. So we're going to take our last break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, and we'll be right back on the other side of that break with that information. So don't you turn away.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
And welcome back here here to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. Jeremiah and I are going to go into our last segment of the day now. We're going to be talking about some home run derby predictions, going to reveal the candidates for Monday's home run derby, as well as our predictions for the MLB All-Star Game. So, Jeremiah, you have the list here in front of you, correct?
Yeah,
so
I do.
Why don't you mention to everyone who's going to be in the home run derby for Monday, and then we'll talk about our thoughts about it.
Okay, starting off the list is last year's champion Todd Frazier. He's with the Chicago White Sox now. He
was with the Reds.
He was with the Reds last year. I think the home run derby was in Great American Ballpark.
It was in Cincinnati last year, so he did win it in front of his own fans. Okay. So.
And we got Chris Bryant, one of the National League starters for the Chicago Cubs. Mark Trumbull, as Ben said earlier, the leader in home runs in the American League, having a good year. Noah Ariando, Colorado Rockies slugger. Robinson Cano from the Seattle Mariners. Will Myers will participate in front of his home stadium, in front of the home fans. Having such a good year for the Padres. So I'm kind of glad he's in it. Finally having a good year. George Springer, who may or may not be on the All-Star team, but will be a participant for the home run derby, representing the Houston Astros, and Giancarlo Stanton, the Miami Marlins slugger. So, yeah.
All right, Jeremiah, so some of these names really pop out to me. First off, Todd Frazier, you mentioned, was the winner last year, and he actually was the runner-up 2 years before that.
Yeah, so behind Cespedes. Yeah,
so I'd say if there's a favorite in my eyes, it's definitely Frazier, because he has the experience. He's done it twice now, and he's second and then first, respectively, his last 2 years. So he definitely has experience. He knows how to sort of get in a rhythm and get things going there. But with that being said, it being in Petco Park, San Diego, it's really not a hitter's ballpark.
It's a huge park.
A big pitcher's ballpark. I think another guy would be one of my favorites is Giancarlo Stanton from a pure power aspect. He hit the longest home run in Citi Field history just recently, which is not another pitcher, which is a pitcher's ballpark for the Mets, so not another hitter's ballpark. And he hit it out of the stadium in like 3 seconds, I think. So I think you have to go with sort of his pure power. Such a strong guy. I'd say he's another favorite. As far as the home run derby goes, I think it's really about the guy who can get in the rhythm the fastest, the quickest, to get more of a consistent swing going on, a feel for the pitches, get a comfortability with the guy throwing the ball to him. And I think that's what really determines a lot of it, though. So I would go with Frazier and Stanton as a couple of my favorites.
My favorites I actually have three. Mark Trumbull, I can't discount him out in this contest. He's just been a slugger, like in any park that he hits at. Giancarlo Stanton is also a favorite for me to win this list, and I'm gonna give a chance for Will Myers here, because that is his home ballpark and he knows how to hit it out of there. So I'm gonna give him a chance. How
do you feel about none of the pitchers getting in here? Like Madison Bumgarner is really vocal about doing it. Jake Arrieta wanted to. Adam Wainwright. Yeah, I was going to say Adam Wainwright. He was really vocal about trying to get in on it as well. But you don't see any of the pitchers in here. You don't really have any inclusion of the pitchers in the home run derby. What do you think about that?
I think it would have been fun to watch Madison Bumgarner, because he does play at San Diego every year.
A lot. They're in their division, so he plays there a lot.
But yeah, I think when you look at it, I'm kind of glad like none of the pitchers are in it this year. Because this whole list is stacked. I just don't see any of the pitchers that we named, Bumgarner, Arrieta, Wainwright. I just don't see them competing well against all these guys. These guys are sluggers, like Trumbull, Bryant, Ariando, Cano, Stanton. I just can't see him going against these guys.
Competing.
I don't give him a chance. Like I said. I think we talked about Bumgarner in the home run derby. I think in our first or second episode, and I wasn't going to. I would love to see him in it, but I wouldn't never gave him a chance. Maybe as high as I would ever see Bumgarner go is probably past the first round, but no, that's even a stretch. So yeah,
Yeah, we have some great hitters in here. I feel like if you would include a pitcher, they would really struggle. A lot like what you said.
It would have been an imbalance of competition. Definitely.
Yeah, so that's why I pitched it a couple of weeks ago on our previous show. But I maybe said if they had like a pitchers only home run derby, maybe you have like 3 or 4 names in there that are willing to do it. And then you have it's kind of like on the side as opposed to the main event, which is obviously all these guys who are in it. So I mean. Like you said, I don't think they would really compete. Madison Bumgarner probably has the best chance of any pitcher if he were to be in it. I would have liked to have seen it because it would have given me and a lot of people another reason to watch the home run derby and really the All-Star Game festivities because it's kind of I'd say it's kind of behind some of the other ones. In the NHL, you have like the skill stuff. In the NBA, you have like the dunk contest, 3-point contest. It's not really as attractive as some of the other ones. I do like how baseball is sort of changing things up the last couple of years with the introduction of the clock, and you only have a certain amount of time because a lot of times these guys will take pitches if they don't really like
5 or 10 in a row.
So that way it kind of speeds it up and gets you more excited, gets you more hyped up. Like, oh my God, he has to hit a home run in the next 4 seconds or else he loses. So he has to like swing for the fences completely. So I do like that aspect of it, and it will get me more excited, so I will most likely be watching it. So I do like that, but without a pitcher, I think they could have done more to improve the viewing of it by including that, but obviously they didn't do it, so they have an idea in mind. So now we have our All-Star Game predictions. Jeremiah, who do you like in the All-Star Game? Or what do you think? What do you think is going to determine who wins?
A better question is who do you think is going to start for both teams?
You're talking about pitcher-wise?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of that depends really on their last start.
I have Johnny Cueto pitching, starting.
That would be 5 days rest. So a lot of times it depends on when their last scheduled start is.
Because Johnny Cueto just pitched last night.
Right, so that does make sense that Cueto could start for the National League. So I also think Syndergaard could possibly start for them.
Yeah.
If I was a Mets fan or a Mets like general manager or everything, I would be worried because he does have the bone spur, so I'd maybe try to hold him out from playing, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I got Cueto and Chris Sale starting the game.
That would be nice. I would like maybe Danny Salazar from Cleveland gets in there, but as far as who starts, I really don't think that matters because a lot of times you have these games getting decided in the middle to late innings.
You know what? I am going to probably give the edge to the American League because the offense is really stacked, and they just piled on relievers. And some dominant ones, too. You got the list of relievers is Zach Britton, Alex Colome, even Calvin Herrera from the Royals, really good. Andrew Miller, Craig Kimball. Like, all you need is 1 inning from those guys. Chris Sale can probably give you 2 to 3 innings in the game. You can probably put Salazar for maybe 2 innings. If the game happens to go to extra innings, you can probably put one of these guys in. Just,
Okay, yeah. I think when I look at this game, the American League has dominated the series as of recently. They won it last. They won it,
and that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think when I look at the pitching, it's definitely the National League is way more dominant than the American League, and I think that helps them because. Imagine you only need 1 inning from a guy like Madison Bumgarner. You only need to get 1 inning from a guy like Noah Syndergaard. 1 inning from a guy like Arrieta or Lester. You only have them throwing 1 inning. How many times could a guy really hit off them in an inning or maybe 2? They're so dominant as the game goes on. I think it'd be hard for the American League to really get a control of them in only an inning or 2. So I think that really could play a factor. I think the American League have to get out to a good start if they want to really win this game. I think their hitting is a lot better, but I think the pitching is a lot better for the NL. I think that's going to be the difference in the game, how the American League can sort of handle the National League pitching. Because I think the National League hitters will have some success against the American League pitchers, but I think the National League pitchers are going to have more success against the American League hitters. So I think that's going to be a difference in the game.
So you got the National League.
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to really – because there's so many good players, it's really hard to predict – a game. The American League has dominated for so long. I think the National League wins this year, though. I'm gonna say the National League.
Okay, all right, cool. I got the American League because I have to give the edge because of their lineup, the things that they can do, shift around players, and I know they have more relievers. They're stacked on relievers, but these relievers, they can strike out 3 players every inning. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is very true. So we'll have to update that on next week's episode when we talk about the All-Star game.
And I kind of want to go back to snubs a little bit. I didn't get a chance to say this while you're doing your American League snubs, but I really think the biggest American League snub is Aaron Sanchez.
Okay.
DJs, yeah. 9-1 and 2.94 ERA. And his 113 and a third innings as third-among pitchers in the American League. So I think he's a really big snub, but who knows? He might get it in the game, because Marco Estrada is injured. So,
yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Yeah. But we will always update you here at the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast next week when we have another show about the All-Star Game and our reactions to that and the Home Run Derby as well.
Yeah.
So this is going to conclude this episode of the Baseball Podcast here at the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network.
But we have another one.
Yes, we do. We have another episode coming up. We're going to be really talking about the second half of the Major League Baseball season, some maybe breakout candidates, guys kind of like who is going to be this year's Jake Arrieta, guys like that. We have our favorites for awards, some teams we like, some players we like, possible early trade deadline rumors, because the trade deadline is at the end of the month. So talk about stuff like that. We will always update you there with that episode. Make sure you are on the lookout for that. But for this episode, Jeremiah, how can they hear it?
How can they hear this episode?
How can our viewers hear this episode?
Well, okay.
And all our other episodes.
You can hear every episode from this show and all our other shows in the GSMC Podcast Network on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, SoundCloud. Which one am I forgetting? I'm forgetting.
You said YouTube, right?
I said
Google Play,
YouTube,
SoundCloud, Stitcher. You can hear us on iTunes. You can hear us on. Our links are on Twitter. It's at GSMC_baseball, as well as Instagram. You can hear us on our podcast network's website, which is gsmcpodcast.com. You can find all the portfolio of every podcast on there, as well as some that will be starting up at the end of this year, early next year. There's other sport ones on there. There's like golf, hockey.
Yeah, I don't know when those are starting, but I know they're in there.
There's also some other fun ones, too. There's like comedy one on there. There's stuff about cars, one about poker. There's a lot of ones coming up that are going to be really interesting, things that I will like.
The one I'm really interested in is the America's Still Beautiful one. That's the one I'm really interested in.
Okay, yeah. You mentioned America's Still Beautiful. So those will be starting up eventually, and we will always have it updated here at the GSMC Podcast Network. But this is going to conclude this episode.
But don't forget to follow us on Twitter at GSMC_baseball. As well as on Instagram with the same handle.
Right. So you can do that as well. And as always, I am Ben.
And I'm Jeremiah.
And we are signing off here at the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Hope you have a good day, and we will see you next episode.